we'd gone by this church for years and said, well, I wonder about that. And then all of a sudden you come in and you say, oh, well, all right, yeah, I'll go there.
My great-great-great-grandfather, Peter Wise, donated the land, the timber, the nails that built Whitechapel Church in the early 1850s. They owned a section of land on the north side of 116th Street that they got from land grant from James Madison, and had the chance to buy a grist mill here. And that's where we are located today, is where that grist mill was. There's a creek, I think, to the south of this that powered that. So probably saw it as an opportunity to have a place of worship. This was the wilderness back in the day, and he had been here since the 1820s. So the church really didn't get built until the 1850s. You know, his father was an immigrant. His father was supposedly from Germany. My grandfather, Emmett Wise, graduated from Carmel High School in 1917. He had 17 in his class. It was farm country here. There were parts of this city that were quite rural up until probably the 80s, 1980s. So yeah, this definitely was, and the farmland here is decent farmland. I mean, the delta of the White River is very nearby, and it's very productive. So yeah, there were some large landowners that were in this area that accumulated a lot of that land.
This church has been here for 171 years and has survived. A lot of churches like this become museum pieces, and they don't survive the new waves.
There was a discussion that they had gotten down to 6 or 8 families, and we're talking about 1860s, 1870s, not sure the time frame, before Peter died. And so Peter came to church and said, just so you know, if you disband, the deed reverts back to the Wise family. And he showed him the deed.
The first people who came to this area, this was their church. Actually, they met under trees. It was a circuit rider by the name of Jacob White. And so he would ride horseback throughout to Noblesville, Fishers, all the way out to Upland. He's actually buried in Upland. And but he got to a certain age, and it was a little more difficult for him to ride horses. And so what they did is they built him this building. That's why it's called Whitechapel. His name's Jacob White. In the 1920s, there was a revival, and this place only seats between 90 and 100, and the building was packed with people who were getting saved. And there are stories that people just from the community didn't know why they were coming to this building on a certain night, but they would show up and they would sit towards the back, and whatever revival preacher that was at that time was preaching the gospel, and they knelt down right at that altar and got saved. And that same story happened again in the 1930s, and then again in the 1950s. So it's interesting, that kind of history that this church, and this is what I've challenged Whitechapel many, many times, is that I believe that God wants to do something again.
When I was growing up on the farm out in Montgomery County, these are the kinds of churches that we had. This church was on a gravel road for years. 116th Street was a country road. After World War II, the city of Carmel had a population of 400 people. Today, it's over 100,000. And this church has survived all of that population growth. With the way they like to build things around Carmel, they'd love to have this land. But we have a cemetery here, and that kind of blocks off some stuff too. And that cemetery goes back before the Civil War.
The This church at one time was very involved in Jamaica. Actually, one of the senior pastors here before me, a guy by the name of Jack Terry, started a school and a church in Jamaica. And this church supported that.
One day, I was driving down 116th Street, and I saw the sign, and it said, Pastor Jack Terry. So I said, well, if Pastor Terry is back in this little church, maybe we ought to check it out. And the rest is history. And as I say, that was about 2007. When we first got here, the church was had about 20 to 25 people every Sunday. And at one point, just before the pandemic, we got down to actual 8 members in this church. And such as it was, I had a few Sundays that I had to lead the singing.
God has blessed us with some incredible people. They love each other. They take care of each other. They have a heart and passion for God. And I think one of the things that's a little different about a place like Whitechapel is that it's simple. We're here because we want to worship in spirit and truth. We want to grow in our faith, and we want to make an impact. So there are a lot of churches that are a mile wide and an inch deep. And I guess I'm really hoping that what we build here is depth. Here we are in 2024. I guess the question I'm asking myself is, now that we're here, what does God want to do with us?
This is a Bible teaching church, and as you may well see, we even hug each other once in a while.